Wayne Reeds is back to join you for Lord Brocktree. Let's jump in. Prologue. Lord Rusano of Salamandastron put aside his quill and capped a tiny gourd of ink with a wooden stopper. Leaving his study, the Badger went downstairs, clutching a wooden pail full of parchment scrolls. He was met at the bottom by his wife, Lady Rosalind, who shook her head reapproving at him. "So, that's where my pail went. I've been looking everywhere for it. Aren't you ashamed of yourself, pinching pails?" However, Rusano looked anything but ashamed. He held up the pail and shook it triumphantly. "Look, Rosalind, I've finished it! My history of Lord Brocktree's journey and conquest of our mountain." Rosalind smiled at her husband. He was the kindest and wisest badger Salamandastron had ever known. Though, when he was enthusiastic about his pet project, he behaved like a cheerful, eager youngster. She took hold of his ink-stained paw as they walked into the dining hall. "They're all waiting, you know. Remember you promised to read them the story once you've completed it." Rusano chuckled. "I don't suppose Snowstripe, Melanius, and the Leverets would wait a day or two until I tidy up this manuscript a bit?" Rosalind stopped Russo in his tracks. "There's not just our son and daughter and some young Leverets waiting. Hear you read your tale. Word has gotten around. Every hair on the mountain wants to hear it too." Rusano turned and made for the stairs, but his wife held onto his paw. The Badger Lord appeared rather flustered. "Every hair, you say? You mean all of them? But, I only meant this as for the youngins, to teach them of our little mountain's history." Rosalind squeezed his paw affectionately. "That's not fair. What about us older ones, the parents and grandkids? Aren't we entitled to know our mountain's history? I, for one, would love to read it. Besides, you have a wonderful storytelling voice. Oh, say that you'll read it to us, Rusano. Please." The Badger Lord allowed himself to be led off again towards the dining hall. "Oh, all right. But it'll take a few days. This is big work. I've been 2 seasons now, reading through dusty old parchments, interviewing creatures for stories about their ancestors, and studying the carvings in the forge. I've sat on the shore, listening to sea otters, stood beneath trees recording squirrels. I've even had to crouch for 4 days in a mole dwelling. Had to keep waking those 2 fat old moles up so I could hear their story. Did you know it was told to them by their great-grandma, who had heard it from her aunt's cousin, twice removed on the uncle's side, or so they said." Rosalind stood with her hand on the door latch. Yes, I know that, Rusano. It won't matter how much long you take to read the thing. You can space it out a bit every evening. Nothing nicer on a winter's night than a good story. Now the fire's banked up. Supper's on the table, and every beast is waiting. So in you go. The dining hall was packed to capacity, mainly with hares, though there was the scratching of moles, squirrels, hedgehogs, mice, and some visiting otters. Lord Rusano was immediately captured by his 2 young offspring, Melanius and Snowstripe, who tugged him up to 3 broad steps to where his chair had been placed next to a supper-laden table. Papa, read the story to us, please. Are me and Snowstripe in it, Papa?" Rusano chuckled as he sat them down on the cushioned chair arms on either side of him. "Great seasons. You'd have to be many seasons old to be in this tale. Now, sit still and be quiet, my dears." Silence fell over the hall, broken only by the doors opening as the duty cooks came hurrying in. Every beast turned around and shushed them loudly, and quiet was restored once more. Rusano split open a small loaf, cut a thick chunk of cheese, and jammed it into the bread, making himself a rough sandwich. Every eye was upon him as he took a few good bites and washed them down with a half tankard of October ale. The still atmosphere was broken by a small hedgehog speaking out loud. "When's Badger Lord going to get on with it?" Rusano let off eating and looked quizzically at the Hodge babe. "Get on at what?" A deafening roar ran out of the crowded hall. "The story!" Rusano looked up in mock surprise. "Oh, did you want me to read my story?" The clapped paws to his ears as all the noise hit him like a tidal wave. "Yes!" The small polished hardwood stick that Rusano always carried with him was lying on the table. Lady Rosalind picked it up and waved it warningly under his nose. "Lord Rusano, will you please stop teasing and read the story? Either that or straight off to bed with you." Every beast, especially the little ones, laughed at the idea of the Badger Lord being sent to bed for being naughty. Rusano pulled up the first scroll from the pail, unrolling it across the tabletop. He placed his tankard on the top of the edge to stop it from folding back. His kind brown eyes roamed the hall, a smile hovering upon his lips as he spoke. "Friends, I will read to you for a few hours each evening. Salamandastran's history goes back further to the mists of time than even I would dare to guess. But the mountain as we know it today, with its leverage school, long patrol, and laws set down for us live to peace by, is due mainly to the work of one creature, Lord Brocktree of Brock Hall. It was he who was responsible for the life we enjoy here. The outer gardens, the terraces, the orchards, the crop growing areas, and wonderful chambers, so full of comfort. Other badgers were here before him, and they were all good lords in their own fashion. But not until the time of Lord Brocktree of Brock Hall did the mountain really come into its own. I have recorded the history of his early years as faithfully as I could. So then here it is. I hope you learn lessons from it. Take heed of its value. And most of all, I hope you enjoy it as a mighty tale of great warriors. Always remember to like and subscribe for more amazing readings.